This tutorial will cover a general overview of APA 7th edition. Now, one of the primary changes with 7th edition is now there is a professional and a student version. Professional is that for publication, student version is that which Westcliff University will use, and I will focus primarily on that version in this tutorial. So at the title page, in the header now is only the page number justified to the right. So running head, the title of the work is no longer included in the header. Start the page on the title page and continue on throughout your references. The title will come first. It is now bolded. Title case is used. So you see here all my main words are capitalized. Followed by your name, name of the university, course code, course name, professor's name, and then the date or the due date of the assignment. This will be double spaced and there's an extra space between the title and the remainder of that information. Abstracts are not required. So unless your professor specifically asks you for an abstract, keep this out of your paper. So this is what your second page should look like. The title, bolded, centered, title case, and then right after that will be the introduction indented. So note that I do not write introduction centered. I simply begin the introduction after the title. All of this will be double spaced, and one tiny change is previously there would be 2 spaces after a punctuation mark, which is a period, but now we only use 1 space. These are the most common headings that you'll use within your text. So this is a first level heading, bold, centered, title case. Second level heading, bold, centered, and justify to the left. And then here, same thing, but it is italicized as well. Let me just mention this because I do use title case and lowercase headings throughout this tutorial. When I say title case, I mean major words are capitalized. So the first word after a colon or a punctuation mark, major words, even if they're after a hyphen, and then words of 4 letters or more. First word, this is a main word. First word after the colon, 4 letters, 4 letters. This is a main word even after the hyphen, and another main word or noun. So within the body of your work, you have your in-text citations. So for paraphrasing or summarizing information, we need the author's last name, we need the year. This is what it would look like in a parenthetical citation, and that comes before the full stop or the period in one sentence. Or a narrative citation is where you refer to the author in your text, but same information is required. If there is no date, please write N full stop, D full stop in lowercase. With quotations, the change is that you need to add either the page number or the paragraph number. There's also some other adaptations for that I will show you later. But at bare minimum, we need to know where it came from directly. If there are 2 authors, we use and to separate them. In a parenthetical citation, we use the ampersand. In a narrative citation, we use the word and. So here's an example of a parenthetical citation. I use my ampersand. Here's an example of referring to the authors in text. This is a change with 7th edition. So if there are 3 or more authors, you're going to list the first author's last name followed by et al. Et al simply just means and others. So an example would look like so, Hong et al, al period. So the period only comes after the al, not after the et. Same thing with the narrative citation. One thing that can occur with this is if you're using the same author, let's say they've written 2 articles. So in this example, I have Akins and Dannon that are authors on both of the articles that I want to use. Technically, with APA 7th edition, I would just need to write Akins et al. However, I don't know which that refers to here. So to avoid confusion, you want to list as many authors as is needed to distinguish. So here we know that Akins and Dannon were involved in both works, so I need to write Hill in order to distinguish them. Same thing here, I need to write Cowie in order to distinguish, and then I can just write et al. Or and others. If there are multiple works that you are using to support paraphrased information, put it in alphabetical order and separate them by the semicolon. If there is no author, you're using the title of the work instead. And a hint with this is if it's italicized in the reference list, keep it italicized. If it's not, use double quotation marks. So here's an example of a book without an author. Language learning, I italicize it. An article without an author would be in double quotation marks. Now, do note that in the citations, we're using title case. So the L is capitalized, the L is capitalized. A, E, and T are all capitalized. In the reference section, we use lowercase, but in in-text citation, use your title case. If the title is long, so if this was Awareness of Effective Techniques for Teaching English Language Learners in a South Korean Context, and I wanted to shorten it, I can do that. So I would just list maybe the first 3 or 4 words, put quotations around it, but just list as many words as necessary to make the link possible between this and the reference section. Please stick to short quotations. So you want anything under 40 words. Long quotations are formatted in a block quote, and we should not be using them in works under 10 pages. With quotes, you want to keep it separate. So the quotations end here and the citation information is incorporated after it. It's not within the quotation marks themselves. Additionally, the period will come only after the parentheses, not at the end of the sentence. So it should never look like that. It's only incorporated at the end of the parentheses. Another thing with short quotations is that you need to introduce them. A quote cannot ever be its own sentence. So I can do that by using my own language before I incorporate the quote, or I can refer to the authors specifically. An easy way to do that is according to, and then start the quote, or use an action verb right after listing the authors. If there are multiple pages, PP full stop and then use a dash between the pages. And if there is no page number, you have the ability to choose. So what we did with APA 6th edition was you found the paragraph number and you would list it there. Still entirely fine, or you can choose to do one of the other options. You can list the section name. You can list the section name, but if it's too long, you can abbreviate it and use the quotation marks around it. So let's say the full section title was Keeping Your Distance During COVID-19 at Westcliff University, for example. If I thought that was too long to use in a citation, I can shorten it, but I need to use the quotation marks to indicate that. Lastly, you can also write the section name as well as the paragraph it came from. So it's entirely up to you what you think will help your readers to find the quotation easiest. Here's an example of a quote within a quote. So you see here, I begin my quote with the double quotation marks like normal, but if it was quoted in my text, I will switch that into single quotation marks and I'd still end with my double. With tables and figures, now we format them exactly the same. So I start with bold, table, number, same, figure, number, and then the title of the table or the figure comes after that in title case and in italics. If you took it from a source, add it as a note underneath the figure or the table. Best practice with this, make sure that you always introduce the table or the figure. You can say something like, according to table 1, what? Or as seen in table 1, what overall? Then you add the image, and then after that, you will explain to the reader what we were supposed to identify from that data. Do not make the reader figure it out for themselves. One small thing that's changed with grammar, they is now acceptable as a singular noun. So if the gender is either unknown or irrelevant in what you're trying to say, you can use they. So previously we would have to say he or she. Now we can just say they. Additionally, you want to pay attention to bias-free language. Some of these practices include person-first language. So instead of saying a diabetic, you would say a woman with diabetes or a person with diabetes. You want to avoid adjectives as nouns. So here, instead of saying the Europeans, you refer to that as European people, or drug users, refer to that as people who use drugs. Specific labels, always as specific as possible. So instead of Asian Americans, because there are a lot of people groups that are combined within that title, specify if you can. Do you mean Korean Americans, etc.? Moving on to the references. So your references section, one thing to note, all in-text citations should have a corresponding reference and vice versa. All references need to have an in-text citation. There should be a balance between these. To format, to start this on a new page, references should be bold, it should be centered, it should be plural. Everything should be organized according to alphabetical order. A hanging indent should be used. Some notable changes between 6th and 7th. With 6th, we removed hyperlinks. Now you will embed them. So blue, underlined, and link to the source. Previously, we could write DOI followed by a set of numbers, but now you need to represent it as a link. So it should start with HTTPS. We used to write retrieved from before URL, now no language before the URL, just the link itself. With books, we used to write the city and the state and the publisher name. Now you don't need to write the location, just the publisher's name. And lastly, before we never used retrieval dates, but now we do use them, but only when an online source is designed to change. This is an example. If you were citing a world population clock, every time you logged into that website, that number would change because people are constantly being born. In situations like that, you would write retrieved, the date from, and then add the link. A DOI is a digital object identifier, so you'll see it either as DOI.org, dx.doio, or DOI followed by a set of numbers. You'll most commonly find it in either the header or the footer of an article. Just be careful if you click on Cite within a database, because it's going to give you the link through that database, which is not helpful for your reader. You might have noticed when you click on that, it takes you to a login. So you want to be using the DOI link, not the database link itself. And just note that these are not always correct, so be careful when using them. Another place you might find the DOI is on the journal's website itself, right before the abstract. Sometimes you'll still see it as a set of numbers, and if that happens, you'll just enter it into the correct format. So https://doi.org/, then you add the numbers and it becomes a working link. I'm also going to incorporate here a free DOI lookup tool. So if you have the title of a journal or a book, you can enter it in there and see if there is a DOI associated with it. So here's a couple of examples. Here's a book with a DOI. Last name followed by the initial of the author. The year still comes in parentheses. Title of the book is italicized in lowercase. This is an example of what you would do with an edition. And then you have the publisher name. Notice the location is not there before the publisher's name, just the name itself. Followed by the DOI link. And there is no number. It is an actual link. It starts with HTTPS. I do not write retrieved from before it. A journal article. So here's my author's information. I separate with a comma and the ampersand. Ampersand always comes before the last author in the list. Year in parentheses. Article title is in lowercase. Notice I capitalize the L and the A only. Followed by the journal name is in italics, volume numbers italicized, issue numbers in parentheses, and then the pages. DOI follows that, the DOI link itself. Here's an example of more than 21 authors. So now, if you have up to 21 authors, you write all of them out. If you have more than that, you list the first 19, and then you'll use an ellipses, so the 3 dots just like so, followed by the last author in the list. So you'll be writing out 20 authors in total. And then the remainder of the information stays the same. Here's an example of a website from an individual author. So author's information, now we need year, month, and day. Month is written out in its entirety. This is the ideal amount of information that you want, but if you can only find the year and the month, add that. If you can only find the year, add that. Title of the website is italicized, lowercase, and then followed by the site name and then the URL link. Again, notice I did not write retrieved from. Here's an example of a web page with a group author. So the group name would come first, followed by year, month, day. Title of the website is italicized, and then I have the URL link. And if you are citing or referencing a video, the author for that video is going to be the person that uploaded it, even if that is not the person that is speaking. So the uploader's last name followed by their initial, year, month, day. Title of the video is italicized. The descriptor comes after that in brackets. So that is just going to tell us what it is. It is a video. Site name follows that, and then the URL link. If there is a screen name, you can add it in brackets after the uploader's name. I hope this helped. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at writinghelp@westcliff.edu.